I always knew I was going to be an artist. I was very confident in that. That's a quote by Lil Peep, an artist that is pulling in about 13 million followers or listeners a month on Spotify and other platforms. The first article that I'm going to use for the information that's coming up is an article called Little Peep Died Before Coming to Pop Royalty and How His Music May Change Time. And this was made on October 2018 by John Caramacchia, and he's a music critic for New York Times with a PhD. Little Peep was born on November 1st, 1996 in Pennsylvania, but he grew up most of his life in Long Island. And his real name is Gustave Ayer, but he got the name Little Peep from his mom, who called him Little Peep because he was just skinny most of his life and small, and that's just what she wanted to call him, and he decided he was going to take that later on into his career. And he was really close to his mom because his parents got divorced kind of later in his life, and he didn't really talk to his dad very much, so he spent most of his time with his mom, which led them to just become really close. And he, during the time when he was a teenager and he's close to his mom, he was listening to a lot of hip hop and rock, which led later on when he started making music, he mixed those two together and kind of made his own genre, which kind of made him stand out to other artists. And starting out, his mom paid for a lot of his equipment and was helping him out until later on, until his music started making money for himself. As of right now, still not all of his music's on all platforms. It's still, some of it's like underground. You have to go and find it, and some of it's harder to find. But a lot of it's still on like iMusic and Spotify. And if you want to find like statistics, they're on billboards and posted on November 24th, 2018. There are ranking charts where they would establish streaming and downloading data and when songs were ranked at certain points and for how long and what albums were. And for Little Peep, he had 4 albums that were ranked in the top 100. And one of the top ones that he had for the longest amount of time was ranked number 4. And that was COWYS Part 2, which is actually an album that came out after he had died. And it grew a lot of popularity for the album and just for all of his music in general was postmortem, and he had a lot of music that blew up after he had died. And for the next group of information I'm going to give is called Little Peep Died 3 years ago. The lawsuits are still raging on. And this is a website where they called Rolling Stones, and this was posted on November 2020 by Jonathan Bernstein. And he sadly died on November 15th, 2017 in Tucson, Arizona, which ironically was one of the first spots that he ever had performed in on his first tour, and I just think that's kind of crazy. And he ended up dying there right before his concert of an overdose, and was found on his tour bus and ended up was found unresponsive, and even when they took him to the hospital, he wasn't able to make it, and they ended up arresting the person that had given him the drugs. And then turned out that his mom later filed lawsuits against the label because it seemed like they were pushing him to take drugs, and they were also not ensuring his safety and making him go out and do things that most likely that he wouldn't have done if it weren't for them. In conclusion, I'm glad to have lightened people on Little Peep and how he impacted the music industry and individuals altogether. And even though that he's passed away, I still think he's going to have a big impact on individuals, and also just creating a new genre. He'll always have a mark in music and